Hey, welcome back. This session is going to be on... Blah, blah, blah. I don't know if I did say welcome.
You said welcome.
No, I'm just saying I don't know if I need to say that. This session is going to be on spiritual growth. Before we get started, I just want to say that there is a really important PDF that goes along with this. It's probably going to be either in like the doobly-doo that's below this, or it should be attached to the website that you're on. If not, let's say this video gets you somewhere, you can just email me, nick@hobokengrace.com or dinnergroups@hobokengrace.com. Well, I'm going to start over. Hello, this session is going to be on spiritual growth. Before we get started, one thing I want you to know is that there is a important PDF document that goes with this that kind of lays this all out. Our slides don't fully cover it. I want to apologize for that. But it should hopefully be in the description below if you're on YouTube. It should, whatever this is being hosted on, hopefully the website has it there too. In case those things aren't there, you can always email me. I'm just nick@hobokengrace.com. Let's say I'm no longer here, it's just dinnergroups@hobokengrace.com, and that'll get to the director at the time. So either those things work. But as we get started here, as group leaders, we want to know when we're exceeding, and we want to know if we're doing well. And so I hope this not just helps us lead our groups of knowing what spiritual growth looks like, but I hope it helps us as well to uncover how we look at spiritual growth. So someone once said that you know you're growing spiritually if you're becoming less critical, less irritable, and more joy-filled. I know those are great growth markers for me. I tend to, when I'm just unhealthy, I get super critical, and I apologize, sorry. Irritable is one of those things that comes around too. But you know what? Those are all true on the outside, but they don't really help give us a strategy to deploy. So that's what we want to talk about here today. We want to talk about how can we put together a framework that together as leaders we can deploy to our group members. And so we've broken it down into 4 questions that we think are helpful in order to understand this process better. And the first question is, what do we believe about spiritual growth? So the first thing that we believe about spiritual growth is that growth is a movement. Most of the time that we look at growth, we think of it as like this linear pursuit. And I think sometimes as a church, we don't necessarily help us out in that because, we try to give everyone like what their next steps are and so forth and what that may be. But ultimately what growth is movement. And it's continual movement on your spiritual journey. For those who have been leading with us for a while, you may have heard us refer to this as spiritual velocity, which is where we're just heading in a direction towards Jesus Christ. And since we're focused on growth, any step forward is growth, and every step forward is progress. So let's give a few examples for you on this. Skeptic becomes open to spiritual things. We think that's growth. Someone leaves the row of a church and enters the circle of group. That's growth. Someone prays for the first time in your group. That's growth. And of course, someone comes to faith. That's growth. And I hope that you're celebrating that too. The other thing is that growth is visible. In other words, it's evident. Faith demonstrates a growing life, and love validates growing faith. So what do we mean by that? Well, we'll start by faith, and we'll continue by faith. We trust Jesus with our lives, and we continue to be in faith relationships with him for the rest of our lives. So Paul lays this out really well in Galatians 5, and highly recommend if you haven't read Galatians yet. It's a great book to go through. Galatians 5 especially, it's going to get into the spiritual fruits, but one of the things that Galatians 5 is sort of summing up is that it all comes down to faith demonstrating itself through love. And so the bottom line that you see on that sheet, the bottom line of this first question is to keep moving forward. Again, the key word there is forward. It's not about pace. Think of the tortoise and the hare. You think of a moped versus a Ferrari. It doesn't matter if your Ferrari can go 200 miles per hour. If it's sitting in a parking lot, it's useless. And so it's the same thing in our own lives. If we're just sitting in a parking lot, we're not making progress with our spiritual growth. We want to keep movement. We want to keep moving. So our next question is then, how do we talk about it? And so we end up, there's 3 relationships that are vital. And so the first one is intimacy with God. We want to make sure that you're connected with Him. One of the things that will help with your spiritual growth too is then being connected with a church family. We just sometimes sum that up as just connection with family. We think of our groups as a family, and you're able to love and care for one another and have a safe and predictable environment for that to happen. And eventually we want you to have the confidence to then have influence with your community, your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors. Who are those people that you're looking to impact? The 3 vital relationships are a way of describing our goal of loving God and other people, both believers and unbelievers. And where this comes from is Matthew 22. So Jesus is out in the community. I can't necessarily remember whether it was disciples or whether it was the Pharisees, but someone comes up to him and they just ask him, "Hey, Jesus, what's the greatest commandment?" And he responds with, "To love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second is to love your neighbor as yourself." Then he says something that's very important. Everything that was written or given hangs on those 2 commandments. In other words, the bottom line, spiritual growth is about loving God and loving people. And so you can see here, intimacy with God, loving God. After that, loving people. Connecting with your church family, there's going to be opportunities that you're going to get to love others by encouraging them and supporting them in their next steps. And then the next one, the way that we're able to love people that are not just believers but unbelievers, is by having influence with our community. And so again, we do that through our events. We do that through various other things that we do to help connect the unconnected. The next thing that's helpful in how we talk about it is we want to leverage 5 faith catalysts. So these are just some things that we've observed in our own lives and our leaders, and these seem to be 5 things that always come around. It's not all inclusive, but it is the ones that you see the most. And so the first one is practical teaching. We want to make sure that we are exposed to teaching that's going to help us, again, take those next steps and to grow and develop. We don't just want to become more knowledgeable. We want to become those doers that we've talked about. After that is private rhythms. It's not just enough for us to be fed. We want to find opportunities where we can feed ourselves, and a lot of that is going to come through those private rhythms. The next one is providential relationships, and so providential is just a word saying like key, and like they're just put there in your life. Relationships. So whether that's your group members or whether that's that coworker that you're trying to have an impact with, which then influence the next one, which is personal impact. Who are the people that you're trying to? Who does your heart feel called to? In that, you're going to hear more about this in the having a vision for your group that Anna and I walk through. So be sure to make sure you see that video later. And then the last one is pivotal circumstances. So this is when just things come up in your life that really challenge and test your faith. This past weekend I was a part of a traumatic event, and it really tests, am I going to trust God? Does He have what's best for me? And, thankfully, because of these other things that I've built into my life, I'm able to go into every single day and know that He is good. And no matter what happens, He is good. And so it's one of those things. So how do we use these, 5 faith catalysts? We try to use them as a filter for our spiritual life. So when you get stuck, how are these things playing out in your life? Is there something in the way that's preventing you from experiencing that God would love to have, that God would have? So, look through those things. Is there ways that you can develop? And so the bottom line for this question of how do we talk about it is it's not just enough to know the 5 catalysts and to be aware of them. We want to leverage. So we want to leverage the catalysts. So leverage these things, use them. The next one is how do we deliver on it? So how do we deliver on spiritual growth? And so we always want people to do 2 things. We want them to, 1, personally take a next step, and one that's appropriate for them. I think this is one of the things as group leaders that we can really get mixed up sometimes. I think sometimes we forget how many years or how the circumstances it took to have the growth that we did. And so sometimes we challenge people to steps that are a bit outside of what is achievable. So we want to have steps that are appropriate for them. The next one is to engage the mission. And so when we say to engage the mission, here at Hoboken Grace, there's 4 kind of core things that we're looking for people to have to build into their life. The first one is to be connected into a group. You're leading a group, so good job on that one. That one's already done. The next one is to serve on a team. Again, A+, you're leading that group, so you're serving. Next one, I'm really hoping that you're doing this, but it's giving to the mission, contributing what we have received from Him. We know that everything comes from God, whether it's our spiritual gifts or whether it's the money we receive from the work that we do. Everything is from God, and so we want to put that back into the mission. And then the next one is investing and inviting others. Again, we pursue people. It's what we do here. We help people find their way back to God. And again, I think one of the hurdles that every leader is going to have to get through with these things is we're going to have to call people to take these steps. Everyone in your group's already going to have that connect a group. So are they serving on a team? And I think sometimes we think, oh, well, we just want it from them. Like we want them on a team so that we can get more accomplished. No. The reason we want people on a team is because we know that they're going to experience God when they're on it. That we know that this is part of His mission. We want something for them. We don't want something from them. We want something for them. So it's really important when we communicate these things of stepping onto a team. Talk about your own personal story of how being on a team has been impactful for your life. I think one of the questions that I tend to go to when I get stuck in these things is I ask myself, Nick, has this been a blessing in your life? And generally when I think about these areas of my life, yes, being in a group has totally been a blessing. So on Sunday morning, why would I be afraid to ask someone, hey, have you found a group yet? Why would I be afraid to ask someone, have you stepped on a team? It's been such a blessing in my life to have, to be able to serve on a common mission with someone else and helping people find their way back to God has given me a blessing. Absolutely. It has made me so dependent on God, and He's just shown to continually provide in my life. And so why would I withhold that blessing from someone else? And so those are the things I want you to think about when you get stuck in those areas. And then this last part is who's responsible for it. So what are the roles within a group and when it comes to spiritual growth? And I think this is one of the best breakthroughs that we've had. I want to give a big credit to Bill Willits and his team at North Point. They're the ones that have really helped us put this together. They're a partner church of ours. We're part of a partner network with them. And so I want to give them credit for this. I think it's just phenomenal. But this was a breakthrough in how I've thought about groups. And so what is everyone's roles? Okay, so when we think about your group members, the individual, what is their role? Their role is to own the process. People have to own it for themselves. Again, you can hear this theme over and over and over again. Like, we can't make them take that step. They have to take that for themselves. And you kind of need to model that for them. You just keep moving forward. It's super, super important. The next one, so what's the group's role in it? Well, the group is there to support. And we want to support them through the ABCs of group life. Accountability, belonging, and care. Having a place where they know that they can have people help keep them accountable. Maybe they can support them through that. A place where they feel safe to belong. A place where they can receive care. And your group your role as a leader is to encourage the process. You would do this by you would do this through asking open-ended questions. There's a whole video on this by Anna that comes later about asking good questions. That'll really help you in this. But we want to encourage the process through participation. We want to model transparency for them. Nothing's more effective as a leader than being transparent. When you're able to start and you're able to set the tone and you're able to be vulnerable with others, you're going to start seeing the other things. They're going to begin to trust you, and they're going to be able to begin to trust others that We want them to see the real you, not the you want them to see. And then the last one is the church. The church's role in this is to partner in the process. So that's why we have these training videos for you. That's why we have the conferences. That's why we have Gold. We want to strengthen you as a leader. We want to invest in you. We want to be encouraging for you guys as group leaders. But then we also realize that there's going to be times where the things that you need inside of your group are outside of what your capacity is. And so we have people on our care team who are ready to take care of you and to step into that process. They have resources for you that can help you walk through that. And we just want you to know that you never need to walk through any of the difficult things that happen in group alone. We want to partner with you. But in order for us to partner with you, you have to allow us, and we need to be aware. And so that's why your relationship with a coach and with me as your director is super important, so that we know what's going on. So the moment that you feel the slightest bit outside of what you think that you're able to handle, we want you to reach out to us and let us know. Also, we just want to help get you the resources that help leverage what's already there. And so we want to help you leverage your story, your gifting, your relationships that you have with others, so that you can impact others and pursue people. So we have a really unique opportunity to help people take their next steps, so that they become all that God intended them to become. This is why we're excited that you have stepped up to become a leader. When you do this, you leave the ownership with them, and you'll see what only God can do. It's exciting and addictive, and it's also challenging, but it's so worth it. When you get to allow them to have the ownership, it's really cool because you're kind of forced to trust God in this process too. And that's where God comes in and does incredible things in the lives. And when you get to witness that, the praises that you'll have, the way that you're able to respond to others, it helps with empathy in other situations that you run into. It is really incredible what you get to experience. And so I hope that this session on spiritual growth was really encouraging to you. Thank you. Woohoo!